everybody. Welcome again to the Glen Kuiper Show, All Giants, here on my YouTube channel. Another edition this week. And, well, I'm excited to introduce my guest. No secret to Giants fans, no secret to me either. I have known him my whole life. Yes, that's accurate. My brother Duane, who is in Miami. Duane, thanks for joining us. What's going on?
Well, I took a red eye. So, red eyes can be great or they can be a disaster. And this one was great. The only problem is when you get to where you're going, you end up napping like 9 times.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I got that under control. I went to the pool. I walked around town looking for runs.
Did you find any?
No, I did not. Whole Foods was out.
Yeah.
CVS, they said they're getting some in, but they're out.
Yeah.
I went into a liquor store, not to buy any liquor, by the way, and they said they just ran out of runs.
Yeah.
So, the Giants are going to have to do this on their own. But anyway, it's not any punishment being here in Miami. Let's put it that way.
No, Miami's good. So I liked to get to my room on the road, but I couldn't really do anything else until I set up the room the way I wanted it. I had to hang up my clothes. I had to get everything situated, get the computer, iPad set up. Even if it was like 3 a.m. when we would arrive, I needed my room set up. So when I woke up the next morning, everything was in place. What's your game plan on that? Because this is important.
Well, I didn't have to set all of that up, but I did have to unpack, because if you leave your clothes in, and especially if you're in a town where there's a lot of humidity like this one, if you don't unpack your stuff right away, then you better have brought some type of an iron or a steam just to get rid of all the wrinkles. So you gotta clear out your suitcase, and now, look, not now, but over the last 10, 15 years, it's your iPads, it's your cell phones, it's your chargers. For a long time, we didn't have to deal with any of that. So yeah, you got to set up a lot of stuff, but I'm not quite as particular as you are when it comes to that stuff. Just so that everything gets unpacked, because look, we're on TV. We don't want to wear wrinkled stuff. So you got to be really careful.
I think, and I'm not proud of this, but when I was with the A's, we had good travel. Not everything was great over there, stadium, all that, but we had good travel. Mickey Morabito was great, but nice hotels always. And I'm afraid that I probably have become a little bit of a hotel snob, and I don't like that. I'm not proud of that. But you stay in these super nice hotels. Ritz-Carlton, Four Seasons, they're all awesome.
Yep.
And it's done, for the players, but you get used to staying in these places, and it's awesome. They're nice. Everything's taken care of for you, and you got to be careful because you do get spoiled. So I'm trying to break out of the being a hotel snob thing. I don't know if I'm doing it or not, but I felt like I was falling into that category a little bit.
Well, what I found out is, so now you're traveling with a major league team, you're first class wherever you go, and now you've got a family with a couple of young kids, and your wife is, she wants things to be just right, and you're used to staying at a great place.
Yeah.
So you better do that with your family, because the first thing your wife is going to ask you is this as nice as the places you stay on the road? Oh, yeah, absolutely. Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But then you're paying for it. Look, it's a lot easier to accept when somebody else is paying for it. Now you're paying for it. Yeah. And you find out that these places aren't cheap. But it's okay to be a snob. You paid your dues. You're in the minor leagues. I paid my dues. I know what it's like to stay in, even in college, where we would have 4 guys to a room. 4 guys to a room. Now, now it's 1 guy to a room.
or a suite, or one guy to a suite.
Or if you're one of the top dogs, then it's going to be in your contract that you get a suite.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're spoiled. There isn't any doubt about it, and I'm tired of apologizing for it. I'm not.
All right, then I'm not going to worry about it.
No, I don't think you should.
I was never a room changer. Like I always felt like, hey, every room in these hotels, it's going to be nice, right? But we had a guy with the A's, and I'm not going to say who it was.
I know who it was.
With the A's, you know who it was. I'm not going to say who it was. And he was notorious for changing rooms. I mean, it turned out there was about an 8-year stretch where it was a game between Mickey Morabito, the traveling secretary, director of team travel for the A's, and this gentleman, where he would get his keys, go up to his room, and come right back down and go right to the front desk and ask for a room change.
Yeah.
Well, what he was trying to do was to get some type of upgrade. And it drove Mickey crazy, where it became a game that we all wanted to watch, because now Mickey knew that he was doing it. So he would wait down there. And then this certain gentleman knew that he was waiting. So he would wait and go down later. And it became this game. And it was absolutely hysterical, all simply to change your room. I was never a room changer. I just figured, come on, we're at a Ritz-Carlton, right? It's going to be awesome. And
yeah, I'm not a room changer either. I mean, I think the only time I changed rooms is if they couldn't get the TV to work.
Yeah,
that's fair. You know what? I need a TV. But I think there's one person in every major league traveling party that is a room changer. I mean,
yes, there is.
we had one over the years, and it's hard to get into their brain to figure out, well, why are because I guess you could go into any room that you had, unless it was a suite, and technically find maybe something that was just a little bit off. But it's like, well, stop. It's the next room you go to, might be worse.
Yeah.
So yeah, I couldn't do it. I didn't like to do it, and I probably changed rooms 3 times over the 45 some years that I've been doing this at the major league level. To me, it's not worth it. It's just not.
Yeah. Plus, you got to have a legitimate reason. You've been on the road. Gosh, you've been on the road forever. I mean, players, and now as a broadcaster, you've been on the road for almost 50 years, right?
Yeah.
And I was on the road for a long time, and you have to have a routine, even as a broadcaster. Maybe even more so as a broadcaster than a player, because the players are at the ballpark at noon, right? Or 1 o'clock. Broadcaster, you're not going till 4 o'clock. And I remember you telling me when I started traveling, you say, hey, find a routine, man, because, otherwise, it's just the days are going to be long, and, get out, do something. And, I always like to, go for a walk in the city, or, just do something to get out, or, do a workout or something. But you got to have a routine. Well, whatever it may be, you may want to sightsee all day. I don't know. I was not a big sightseer, but you better have a little bit of a game plan on each road trip, especially when, you look at the city and go, okay, this city, I'm good doing this, this, and this. So you got to have a little plan. Right. You got to straighten it out ahead of time.
I mean, it really helps if you go back and you stay in the same hotel. Say you go to Philadelphia's. You've been staying in the same hotel in Philadelphia for the past 15 years. Well, you know exactly where the drugstore is. You know exactly if you needed some groceries. You know exactly where the 6 Starbucks are. And so you know what your routine is. It's when you change a hotel where you got to spend that first day moving around town to figure out where everything is.
That's exactly right.
So now the hotel we're here in Miami, we haven't stayed here. I haven't stayed here in, since Barry Zito was on the Giants. So I forgot. So I had to take a little bit of a stroll today to find out, what was going on, where things are at. And once you do that, then you can settle in and get into your routine. But a routine is absolutely vital. Yeah. And I was lucky because my routine for 30 years involved my brother Jeff. It involved Mike Kruko, especially those two, where we would start out our day together at a Starbucks. And then after a couple hours at Starbucks, Jeff would go to work. Mike and I would go to lunch. I would take a nap. He'd play his guitar. We'd get on the bus, and you do that. You just, and there were times where Mike and I had lunch in a 4-day town at the same restaurant every day.
Sure.
And it drove Dave Fleming crazy. He's like, don't tell me you went back to Panera. Come on. I was like, yeah,
don't worry about it, Dave.
We did. And I know the menu and I like what I ordered. All right. So back off.
Yeah.
So, I mean, sometimes the routine gets to be a really, really strict routine, but it does make the world go round. I mean, it also makes the trip, you don't want it to go by fast. You just don't want it to be really slow. And if you get in a good routine, it doesn't go slow.
Yeah. I always found that the 2-city trip, you're just used to 2-city trips. Baseball schedule is sort of built on 2-city road trips, but there's always 2 or 3 3-city trips. And I always found that third city to be like tough. Like you didn't want to really go to that third city, especially if it was on the East Coast, because then you had the long flight home. But it's amazing how you plan when you look at that schedule and you know what you're going to do in that city, what you're going to do in that city. One of my favorite things to do was to get the hometown sports pages, take them, go to a Starbucks, and I could sit there for an hour and a half because you're generally downtown and the people watching is great because you're just in a different city. You're in New York, you're in, wherever, Chicago. Sit there, dive into the hometown newspapers, which are completely different than what you're used to.
Yep.
And that was one of my favorite things. Now, newspapers, they're not the same, obviously, but to sit there for a good hour and a half and read about the sports from the city you're in with the, drinking coffee and looking around, and it's the summer and wherever you may be. That was one of my most favorite things to do. And if it was going good and I had a good sports page, hour and a half to 2 hours drinking a cup of coffee was not out of the question at all.
Yeah, I think the newspaper days were the most fun for us.
Yeah.
The other thing too, Glenn, is there was a time when I was a player right at the end of my career and at the beginning of my broadcasting career where we had 4-city trips.
Ooh,
and that's when the Giants were in the Western Division, and believe it or not, Cincinnati was in the West. Atlanta was in the West. Houston was in the West.
Yeah.
So we would have to go to, we get on the road and we go to 4 cities.
Yeah.
And look, I was a single guy. It didn't wear me out, but for guys like Mike who had little ones at home, I mean, that was tough because no FaceTime, no cell phones. So any phone calls you made with your wife and your kids, it all had to happen with either a payphone in the city you're at or obviously in your hotel room.
Yeah.
But anyway, going back to the newspaper days were the best.
Yeah.
And I remember a couple of times where, for instance, an example, when we were in Detroit for the World Series, and this was before interleague play, so this was 2012. I remember calling you while we were in Detroit from the Starbucks, and he said, "Oh, I know exactly where the Starbucks is."
Yeah.
And you said, "Are you sitting by the window? That's the best seat."
And you were.
And we had the same conversation in Kansas City, where you could sit underneath that tree at the Starbucks in Kansas City. So yes, the newspaper and the routine, we ended up probably in a lot of ways having the same routine.
Yeah. So I told you the good Starbucks to sit, where to sit in the American League cities, and you did the same in the National League cities. Some people would probably think that's weird, but hey, we were taking care of each other. So
we're brothers.
And I think too, people wonder, well, what's the schedule like? Well, if there's a 7:00 game on the road, just, for conversation's sake, the bus from the hotel was going to leave at 4:00, unless you're in New York, long trip, but may leave at 3:30. But let's just say 4:00 bus, 7:00 game. You needed to be in that lobby or getting on that bus a couple minutes before 4:00, because at 4:00 the bus was leaving, and there was generally a 3:00 bus or maybe a 2:00 bus, which all the players got on. Late bus was more for broadcasters, but starting pitcher would get on there late. But the bus was leaving at 4:00. If you were late, then you're on your own getting to the ballpark. And it's amazing how your day was set up for 4:00 bus, 7:00 game, 10:00 bus back to the hotel, and on the road, your life kind of revolved around those different time slots. And it was all because you had to get the bus.
I think the moral of the story to that is the one thing that you learn very fast in the minor leagues is about being on time.
Yeah, big time.
Because at least in professional baseball, the bus doesn't wait. The plane doesn't wait. Whatever function you're going to, it's not going to wait. John Miller tells the best story about that when he was broadcasting for the Orioles, and they're going to the airport to get on a plane to go somewhere, and he's in bad traffic, and he didn't think he's going to make it. And he said he looked over, and the car next to him was Cal Ripken. And he thought, well, you know what? Yeah. I'm going to be late. Cal's going to be late. They're going to hold the plane.
Yeah.
Nope, they flew on their own. The plane left without Cal Ripken.
Really? Wow.
So the point is it doesn't matter who you are. It's going to leave. And you know what? It can be a burden in your marriage because you are so programmed to be on time that you expect everybody in your family to be on time.
Oh, big time.
You know what?
Yeah.
That doesn't happen.
Yeah. That's absolutely 100%. Yeah. And you know what? First pitch is going to go at 7:05, whether you're there or not. I mean, that's just, whether you're broadcasting or whether you're the leadoff hitter, it's going to happen without you. Yeah. So life on the road.
That's also a reoccurring dream that I think all of us have, that we're scuffling to get to the batter's box. And, we only got one spike on, or we can't find their glove, and, that's the nightmare for us.
I know. And people may think that's weird, but I don't know if it's an athletic thing or what it is, but that's a dream that, I don't know. Is it just athletes have? But you and I have laughed about this hundreds of times, that, we have the dream where you're ready to play in a game and you only have one spike on, or you can't find your glove, or you see the stadium right there, and you know what time the game starts, but you're not going to get there in time. It's the damnedest thing.
Or you can't get in.
You can't get in. The door's locked, or you can't find your bat to hit. It's very strange. I don't even know how to explain that, but you know what? Let's wrap this up. On the road, I always felt like the ballpark and how you're getting there, that comes into play too, as far as what you like about a certain city. It's the hotel. Is the downtown good? Can you walk around? I always like to be able to walk to the ballpark from the hotel. Yeah. And there's very few places that you can really do that. Most of the time you're getting on a bus, which is fine. But I thought it was so nice to be able to go to the park whenever you want and just be able to walk there. And, I've been to all the ballparks, and so have you. And I mean, I think the best setup that I can think of in the top of my head is probably Minnesota, because you stay right at the hotel. The basketball arena is right there. The target field is right next to it. It's about a 5-minute walk. And as you're walking, you enter into right field at target field, but you're walking by the Twins statues. So you can't help but kind of stop and, there's Kirby, right, or there's, Kent Herbeck, which is just kind of cool. It kind of gets you thinking about the game. It would be, it'd be like walking down a long walkway and having Mays and McCovey and the Gaylord pair, all those statues. So I always thought Minnesota was the best setup in my mind because the broadcast booth was great, lots of room, room for your monitors and your paperwork, which you and I talk about all the time. Need counter space, baby. That's what you need in the broadcast booth. So if somebody said, what's the favorite spot? It would be Minnesota.
Yeah, well, you've picked the one park I haven't been to. So
you need to go. We need to go.
Well, look, San Diego's that way because the hotel is just a bridge to the ballpark. Cincinnati, you walk by all the statues when you walk from the hotel. So there are Cleveland, you can walk to the hotel.
Yeah,
there are a number of great spots that you can walk to. And I agree with you. It makes it so much easier. And after a while, you get sick of focusing on that 4:00 bus. It's like, because that becomes your thought of the whole day is you got to be on the bus at 4:00.
Absolutely.
And sometimes it's just nice not to have to worry about the 4:00 thing.
Yeah. You're worried about taking a nap and, it gets too long and, that kind of thing. Hey, before we shift gears and go to the Giants, we got a question. Who installed the love of baseball for both of you, family, friends, or both? Well, it starts with family, obviously. Our dad was like a star fast pitch softball pitcher. I know we're bragging about our dad, but trust me, we have articles, right, Duane? We have evidence of what was the no-hitter count? Was it like 20, mid 20s or something? He had a lot of no-hitters. He was a stud. So he was that's kind of where it probably started for you, Duane. You're 13 years older than I am. So I remember Dad pitching and doing that, but he was a little bit older at that point.
I caught him.
You saw him when he was like nasty, filthy.
Yeah, I watched him as a little kid when he was unhittable. And then when he got a little older, they lied about my age and I caught him, and I had a chance to catch my dad. It was great. He did. He just because he played kind of makes you really interested in what he's doing. And, I want to do that. And then I attached myself on the radio to the Milwaukee Braves as early as I can remember, as far as maybe 1956, 57.
Oh, you picked a good year.
So I was 7 years old at that point, and they were it, man. The Braves were the real deal. So it was really Dad and the fact that I found out baseball on the radio, where you couldn't. And I had no idea what Eddie Matthews and Hank Aaron looked like. They were never on TV. So you got to paint a picture in your mind as to what these guys look like. And as far as I'm concerned, they were all 6'4", 240 pounds, which was not the case at all. But yeah, it had to be Dad. Dad was a great dad when he came to watching us play, because he never said a word. He just stood off in the back and just made his presence known. And then, he never criticized either. The only thing he asked you to do was hustle. That was it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny. Those are the same things I remember too. But since I was the youngest of everybody, like, it wasn't just Dad. It was, it was you and when I first have memories of being 7, 8, 9 years old, one of my first memories is going to the College World Series to watch you play. Well, That's the way I grew up. It just, that's it. We were playing baseball. And then when, it started to get cold in the fall, we were playing football. And then when you went indoors, we played basketball. That's just the way it was. But I know Dad always told this story about you, which I always thought was great. You were a very good high school athlete, football, basketball, baseball. And I'll never forget, Dad said, I remember Duane coming home from a basketball game, which would have been the dead of winter, right? Probably January in Wisconsin. And you had played well, and you went into your room and you were throwing the baseball up in the air and catching it with your glove on.
Yeah, laying in bed.
After a basketball game in bed.
Yeah.
And I remember Dad said that told me right there I knew where his heart was.
Yeah.
Didn't say how I knew he was going to be a big leaguer. He said I knew where his heart was. Right. So Dad was great about like just seeing that stuff and then knowing that's really important to him. I'm going to let him face that dream, and not all dads are like that. I mean, dads, I see it, you see it, we see it a lot. There's some dads that probably don't go about it the right way with their kids. And I mean, that's just reality. We've seen it.
Well, one other quick story about us as kids. We had an old farmhouse that I was raised in, and then for whatever reason, they tore it down and built a newer home. And it just so happened that the basement in the newer home was long and narrow. And remember, Dad was a softball pitcher, so he threw underhand. We could take batting practice in the basement.
Thank goodness.
Because he pitched underhand. You couldn't throw overhand because you'd hit the ceiling in the basement. But because he pitched underhand, I mean, I can still picture it. I know you can too. The wall where it had the strike zone in chalk, right?
Yep. Yeah.
And you stood by that, and that was what Dad would pitch to. And we'd knock all the lights out, and Mom would be upstairs screaming and everything else. But Dad was like, "That's fine. We can replace the lights. It's the middle of winter, and this is what we're going to do."
Yeah, and we use tennis balls, so it wasn't like he wasn't pitching, baseballs at us, but tennis balls, wood bats, and it was probably, I don't know, I'm guessing 50 feet. It wasn't a full 60 feet 6 inches, but it was pretty darn close.
Yeah. It was also -7 outside, so
exactly
we were having a good time.
Yeah. So that's life on the farm, folks. You get batting practice downstairs. So that's fun. Good memories. But all right, let's shift gears, Duane. Let's do the Giants. So 31-25, 3 back, 1 back in the wild card. We've watched every game. You've watched every game. I think after 56 games, you can evaluate here, right? It's a fair time to kind of evaluate. What's your evaluation of this team a third of the way through the season?
Well, I mean, they're where they're at because they're where they're at record-wise because of how they started.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think I was talking to Cole, my son, today on the phone, and it was like if they don't have Wilmer Flores the first week, they're probably a 500 team right now. That's where they made up the difference as to being above 500, because after the first 10 days, I think they're playing 500 baseball.
Yep, they are.
And I think we knew that there were going to be stretches where this team was going to strike out offensively and strike out not at an alarming rate, but one where you go, can we put the ball in play a little bit?
Mm-hmm.
So we knew that there were going to be guys that were going to swing and miss, but we also knew that they were going to play pretty well defensively. Their pitching was going to be really, really strong, not knowing what Robbie Ray was going to do. So that added to that. And of course, their bullpen has been, fantastic. Their offense right now is they're spinning their wheels, and it's going to happen. I mean, the Dodgers went through a stretch where I think they lost 7 in a row. And look at that team. I mean, the Padres did the same thing. So teams are going to hit stretches like this. It's just that when the offense is not doing anything, it becomes boring, alarming. I can't watch this. I mean, I know what the fans are all thinking and what they're saying. But Chapman's starting to swing it. Adames is going to get it going. And I'm pretty confident that things are going to start to get a lot better. Because right now they're living on pitching and their bullpen. And and maybe the powers that be with Buster and Zach, maybe they pull the trigger and make a deal or two to strengthen the offense. We'll have to wait and see. But right now they're going to go as far as they can with pitching, and they're going to have to get some key hits. And, you know, you and I talk about this at coffee all the time. When you go into a town, you just don't get swept. Win one game.
Yeah.
And that's what I felt about Detroit. Win one game, because it can make the difference of the entire trip. Where now you're in Miami. If you win one game in Detroit, you know, now it makes it a lot easier to have a decent road trip. Now there's more pressure on you here in Miami because of the fact that you didn't win a game in Detroit. Win one game, and it just makes things a lot easier.
Yeah, and offensively, you know, we can throw the numbers out there, but we know there's 24 runs scored in the last 11 games. And so 11, you figure 2 weeks, and you and I have always agreed on this. When your team is not scoring runs, then I think as a fan, and listen, even all of us who, you know, are fans, but you try to, you know, control your emotions a little bit. But when you're not scoring runs, it's easy for your team to look like they're not a good team. And when a slump happens, it feels so much longer than it really is. And every team goes through it. But, you know, you can see the fans' frustration, because you know, when you don't score runs, you just get, to me, it's more frustrating than if your pitching staff is getting knocked around. I don't know if that makes any sense or not. There's just something about not scoring runs, missed opportunities. It's just more frustrating for any of us, especially I think for fans.
Well, runs are entertaining.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, if you score 7 or 8 or 10 runs, I mean, that's entertaining. Don't get me wrong, a 1-0 win is very, very entertaining. But if you know, if you're playing 1-0 games, win or lose, for a week, after a while, it's not entertaining.
Yeah.
So you got to swing the bats to make things entertaining, and that's not the easiest thing to do at our ballpark. But I mean, you can't say anything bad about our ballpark, not given the fact that, you know, there's World Series championship banners hanging on the wall. So you play to it, and you don't get frustrated with it, because in the end it should help you. But swinging the bat, it's entertaining, and I think I want to start being entertained here in Miami. I do.
You talked about Adames a little bit, and you know, I like watching the guy play. I mean, you know, there's a spirit to the way he plays. I think that spirit is certainly being tested a little bit, but you know, if you just look at his numbers, Duane, you know, his batting average is 37 points under his career average. His OPS is 136 points lower than his career average. So there's the struggles, right? But I know, as you know, you're a broadcaster, you're there a lot. I'm at the games a lot. You see beforehand, before the fans get there, before batting practice, you see how hard these guys work, whether they're on a hot streak or whether they're really, really struggling. You see them huddled around iPads and computers looking at their at-bats at 2:30 in the afternoon. You see them grinding in the batting cage with Barry Bonds and all the hitting coaches and having meetings. And so there's a lot more than just that pregame batting practice that goes on. You know, so you really kind of pull for these guys when they're slumping, because you know how hard they're working, not from 5 o'clock on, but from 2 o'clock on. You know, so I think when you're that close to it, you maybe don't get as frustrated as fans do, but you also maybe pull just as hard for these guys, because you see, you know, kind of what they're grinding through and looking for some rewards, but you don't always get those rewards right away.
Well, they're grinding at breakfast too.
Yeah.
You know, they're grinding at dinner. They're grinding before they go to sleep at night. I mean, that's just a product of being in a slump and not having things go your way. Look, you can take batting practice till you're blue in the face. You can hit off the tee till you're blue in the face. You can have somebody soft toss you until you're blue in the face. You can stand in front of a mirror until you're blue in the face. And you can do all of those things, and those guys do that. But it's got to click. And sometimes it just takes one at bat. Sometimes it takes a walk, and it'll get you in. The one thing that you really have to be careful, and every ball player falls into this. Bonds was the exception. Is if he was going through a little bit of a funk, he never changed his stance. Cal Ripken, I did, I played against him once, I think, but not having been in the American League, they tell us that if he was going bad, he'd change his stance 15 or 20 times. So you really kind of have to be careful that you don't start messing with what has been successful for you. But it's just natural that, all right, I'm going to close my stance a little bit. That's going to work. I mean, it's kind of like buying golf magazines when you suck. You think that magazine is going to help you get better. It doesn't. It doesn't. Trust me. I mean, I had stacks of magazine this high thinking that I was going to be better. So yeah, just kind of stay with what is going on. The one thing I noticed about Adames watching him this week is if anybody ever asked me, what would you tell Willie Adames to do? I might tell him to move this much closer to home plate.
Yeah.
And maybe take away that slider that they throw a lot to him that's down and away. Just maybe that much. Sure. I mean, in a baseball stance, that's a lot, but maybe even that much. And then just look for the pitch in. That always kind of helped me, especially against left-handed pitching. But you know what? It's going to happen, and he can beat you in a lot of ways. Plus, he's the energy on this club, and I give him credit. Even when he struggled offensively, that has not affected how he goes about treating his teammates and how he treats the game. He has fun, and he shows it. So good for him. You pull for guys like that.
Yeah, and I'm always amazed at how mentally strong big leaguers are and have to be. When you were playing, I was in high school, and I probably wasn't ready to talk to you about the mental side of the game, but it really does amaze me how strong these guys are, and they got to grind through it. And I remember you told me a story about a guy that was a teammate of yours in Cleveland. Obviously, I'm not going to say his name, but he was a really talented young player, but his career kind of flamed out. But for one shining moment, he was terrific. And I remember you said the problem is he could turn an 0 for 4 into an 0 for 20, just like that, which means he let one bad game turn into 4 or 5 bad games. And I don't know, but I'm guessing you just can't do that at the big league level. You'll fail. You just won't be able to do it in a game that amounts to so much failure like baseball.
Yeah, I mean, the whole point is if you can forget about it on your way home, I mean, that's the best way to handle it, but it's a lot easier said than done. Especially, I remember sometimes thinking, Buddy Bell just went 0 for 4. He struck out 3 times. He's going to walk into his house, and he's got 3 young boys, and these young kids are going to make him forget about that 0 for 4. Mm-hmm. Me, I'm walking into the house, and the thing I got is my VCR to watch the 3 strikeouts that I just had. I didn't have no kids. I didn't have a wife. So I think you got to pack a cigarette. Helps you. I just bag and a cup of coffee. I was ready to go. As long as Denny's was down the street and they had the Grand Slam breakfast, I was happy as can be. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, you got to be tough. I'll tell you, you talk about being mentally tough. Get hit really hard in your helmet or even in your shoulder or your back by a guy that throws hard, and then go up there the next time and dig in. I mean, that's what separates guys in the big leagues from guys that don't make it, because you got to hang in there. And if you don't, they will eat you alive.
Yeah. Well, let's finish on the pennant race a little bit, Duane. The postseason's changed a little bit. You got 12 teams in now, 3 wild cards, which is good. I tend to like it. But my point on all this is the one thing that I have found myself watching closer now is because these wild card tiebreakers are now decided by your head-to-head record. There's no play-in game, and to me, all of a sudden you got a 4-game series against the Padres, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. It's the first week of June, right? What's the big deal? All of a sudden you start thinking about head-to-head and, what if we finish with the same? I don't know. I get this feeling like all of a sudden that's a big series, even though it's only the month of June. I mean,
and they're 0-2 against them.
Exactly. Last year, what was it? Who did it? There was 3 teams that had the same record, and it was the Braves, Mets, and Diamondbacks. All had 89 wins. The Diamondbacks got left out of the third wild card because their season record against the Braves and the Mets was the worst of the 3.
Right.
So it's the last 2 wild card spots, they're going to be decided by 2, 3, or 4 games.
Yeah.
Or maybe even tied like it was last year. So, you got the Braves coming in. So I start looking at these games against these teams that are fighting with you in the postseason and for this wild card spot. And all of a sudden they become a lot bigger than maybe they were before. And that's why I look at the Padres series. I'm like, hey, this is the big series coming up.
Right. Well, I think that there's another way to look at it, Glenn, is I think it's great that you look at it that way, that I look at it that way. But if you're the Giants players, you really should treat the game against the Marlins Friday night here in Miami. You should treat that as important as the game on Monday against the Padres.
Yeah, that's fair.
I mean, and look, it's not college, it's not high school where you get the team together on Monday and you go, all right, guys, look, it's the Padres. We got to try harder. It doesn't work that way in baseball. There's too many games. You can't try harder against, one team than against the other. It doesn't happen that way. But you can emphasize the importance on your guys is to these games within your division and the games that are in, like in interleague. Okay, if we're going to lose, let's lose in interleague and let's beat the snot out of people in your own division. Problem is it doesn't really kind of work that way, where every game is important. And you know what? You play 162 games, and before every one of those games, you think you're going to win. So that means you think you're going to win 162 times.
Yeah.
But we know that doesn't happen. But yeah, anyway, these games are important here in Miami. They really are. But yeah, the home crowd in San Diego for 4, I'm looking forward to that too. Although I will be tired of Fernando Tatis after the 3rd game.
Yeah. Well, let's hope we don't see him rounding the bases. But all right, Duane, I'm going to let you go. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate it. And I'm sure we'll do this again soon and hopefully many more times. But have fun in Miami. I know you're probably, I know you. I've known you for a long time. You're probably heading out, right? Where are you headed?
Well, I'm going to hit the streets in South Beach.
Okay, good.
I got my group. They travel. Yeah, right.
Yeah,
I'm 2 hours from going to bed, and my lifeline on the road now is your iPad. It really is.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I mean, I've gone now into a 3-game trip. I haven't turned the TV on one time.
Yeah.
And that, if you'd have told me that 10 years ago, I'd have said, no. So anyway, I will enjoy the time I'm here, but trust me, I'll be happy to get home and have a cup of coffee with you on Monday morning.
Yes, that's exactly what we'll do. Thanks, Duane. I appreciate it. And,
all right.
Good this weekend. All right. Thanks, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the Glen Kuiper Show. All Giants. Remember, hit that subscribe button. We would love for you to do that. For Duane, I'm Glenn. We'll see you soon. Hope you enjoyed the show, everybody.